Welcome back to American Warrior Radio right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL, brought to you by AVET Project. Glenn, something really cool happened just yesterday. What was that?
Well, the Army had their 238th birthday.
Woohoo! Happy birthday, Army!
Can you subtract that real quick and tell me what year the Army was?
1775.
1775, and it was the Continental Army that was formed at that point in time. Of course, it's changed to the United States Army over time, but 238, happy birthday.
No kidding.
But more importantly, thank you for all the work you've done over those years to protect our freedoms and keep our country free. We love you, Army.
No kidding. I mean, honestly, the Army is awesome. There's always a friendly rivalry between the different branches, but you know, the Army is the biggest branch, isn't it? They have the most people.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so come on, hats off to the Army. Give it up for the Army. Happy birthday. We had to get that out there. I want to mention something else real quick, folks, because right here on the Space and Treasure Coast, there's a group of people that are putting out, as I move my papers around here, an awesome newspaper on a weekly basis called The Veteran Voice. Voice of Experience, The Veteran Voice. And you're going to be able to see this episode like every other American Warrior episode on YouTube. Kim, our producer, just took a quick photo of this. The Veteran Voice, you can find copies of it at the veteran clinics like in Vieira and probably down in Vero Beach.
Yeah, it's in a couple of counties, and I know they have it at the Veterans Memorial Center, which is directly behind the Merritt Square Mall, which also has a great museum. We're going to have somebody on to talk about that one of these days for you. It's a wonderful place also to hold weddings and those kind of things.
No kidding. And actually, AVET Project has supported a couple weddings, and we donated an arbor, what do you call it, the archway for the bride and groom to go under.
Yeah, I call it the archway. I'm sure there's some fancy word for it.
I'm sure there is. But here's the deal, folks. This is an awesome newspaper, and we desperately want you to support it because they're supporting our vets. It's relatively inexpensive, okay? It's like $12 a year to get this mailed to your mailbox. How much more convenient could that be?
And it comes out weekly, right?
Exactly. You get it every Friday right there in your mailbox.
That's like 25 cents an issue.
And they did a wonderful story. Patrick McAllister, who writes for Veteran Voice, interviewed me and John Harper, who, by the way, he owns WMEL and manages it, and he's also a Vietnam veteran. It's an excellent story. It talks about Glenn and myself, and of course our producer Kim, and our show's engineer and call screener Vince Young. Get a hold of a copy of this, or you can go online, Veteran Voice Weekly. Just like it sounds, veteranvoiceweekly.com. I'm going to throw the number out there to subscribe because really, folks, for $12, this is great information. It keeps you in tune with what's going on here on the Space and Treasure Coast. 772-20. This is why you need a pencil and paper. 772-204-2409. 772-204-2409. Or go online, veteranvoiceweekly.com. There's an excellent article about American Warrior Radio. This show, folks, is for you.
That's right.
And encourage you to read about that and subscribe to the newspaper. And at some future episode of American Warrior Radio, we'll have a representative, maybe even Patty himself, who wrote the article, on to talk about this new venture, because they've been in business now for a little while, and we want to make sure that they stay in business and get the word out, like us.
Yep.
The real deal, folks. None of this. We want the real scoop for whatever's going on in the veterans community. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, but you're going to get the real scoop here. And if you're listening to American Warrior Radio via the internet, whether you're over there in Afghanistan, God bless you, stay safe. Keep in mind, we've got over 100 folks from the 715th MP Company over there right now. And do you know what their job is? They went over there originally, or so they were told, to guard a prison. That's bad enough duty.
Right.
Well, they changed, and now they're over there training up Afghan National Army, the ANA, and that's an iffy chore.
Pretty dicey thing lately. I'm sure some of you have seen in the news media and even the television media about some of the the Afghan trainees turning on our troops, but so they
literally shooting them in the back.
Yeah, they had infiltrated the Afghan police. So their screening process may need ramping up a little bit. There are Afghan police that are definitely on our side, but there looks like the bad guys have found a successful way of infiltrating their recruiting practices right now, and so that kind of a job is very dicey right now.
So hats off to the men and women of the 715th MP Company right here in Melbourne, because they're over in Afghanistan right now fighting for your right, my right, Glenn's right, Kim's, Vince's, all of us, our rights to remain free and enjoy the liberties we do. And they're in a terrible situation, and this isn't the first time. This is their third deployment to Afghanistan. So if you want to find out more about what's going on, they've got a Facebook page, and you can access this and so much more by going to avetproject.org. avetproject.org. AVET's an acronym, American Veterans Empowerment Team. We're an all-volunteer nonprofit helping out the military families and the veterans as well. Nobody gets a paycheck, so if you can donate, all right, we've got a lot of events coming up. If you can make a donation, whether it's $5, $15, or $50, whatever you can afford, please do so, because everything that comes in to AVET Project goes right back out in direct support of our military and their families. But while we're talking about this subject, and that is this tenuous situation of being over in Afghanistan for over 10 years now, Glenn.
Exactly.
We have an unfortunate story. It's fortunate in one way in that this young sergeant is alive, but it's unfortunate because this young man who had just graduated Palm Bay High School, I think in 2006.
Right.
Justin Burdette. Okay, he enlisted in the U.S. Army. How old was he when he enlisted?
He was 19 years old when he enlisted in the United States Army.
And he had, how many tours overseas?
I think he had third tour. Yeah, sorry, misreading my note here. 3 tours to Afghanistan.
Okay. And
that's rolling the dice a couple times too many, but...
Exactly. So here's what happened, folks. He's over there. As a matter of fact, let me just breeze over this real quick. On Sunday, June 9th, 2013, while patrolling on a mountain in Afghanistan, Sergeant Burdette was hit by an RPG missile. What's RPG stand for?
I was reading that and I did too long. I can't remember.
Rocket-propelled grenade.
That's it.
It looks like a bazooka with a freaking rocket on the end of it. Well, he was hit. His soldiers had to carry him off the mountain to a waiting helicopter, not knowing if he was even going to make it. He was the only one that received serious injury. Of course, he was awarded the Purple Heart. He was flown to Germany, and he's got a long, long road ahead of him. But like you said, Glenn, it wasn't his first combat tour. It wasn't his second combat tour, but his third combat tour, and he loses both his legs.
Well, it tells me that we're a little short on the forces we need to run our army, and we're stretched a bit too thin, and sequestration taking away billions of dollars a year from our military budget is not helping that situation. It's getting worse as we go, and we're going to talk another day about sequestration and what some of the effects are. But I'm getting more and more information on almost a daily basis about how many pieces of military equipment, aircraft that they need, that they cut that in half and so forth and so on, and we're already undersized in ships, and it's stopping the construction on a couple of ships that are required, and it's not a good thing, and it needs to get fixed. But words for another day.
Getting it back into perspective, and that is, this was his third tour, folks. Like you said, that's rolling the dice. In Vietnam, you had to serve one combat tour.
Yeah, I know some people that did 2, but it was purely on a voluntary basis. It was not a requirement to do 2.
Yep. Hey, you sign on the dotted line now, or anytime after 9/11, you're going to go over there once and probably multiple times.
Yeah, even if you're in the Guard or Reserve, they're pulling multiple tours.
Oh yeah, for sure. As we just talked about the 715th on their third deployment to Afghanistan. Anyway, here's the deal. So Sergeant Burdette he was in Germany. He's been transported to Walter Reed right now, At first, the injury took his lower legs, approximately both of his feet, and second surgery they had to remove more. So he's a double amputee right now, folks. And if you've been following this story on AVET Project's Facebook page, and I'll mention real quick, on 1300 WMEL, let me say you're listening to us in Montana or Idaho, wherever you're at. Click on the archives button and you're going to see all of our episodes by title so you can listen to them. They're in MP3 format, easy to share with your friends. Make it viral. There's good information there.
Oh, absolutely.
And you go on the schedule, hit Saturday, and you go down to our link, 11 to noon, you'll see American Warrior Radio. One little link will take you right to AVET Project's website. You'll be able to go right to the American Warrior Radio Facebook page, and then there's even, thanks to John here at the station, there's even a nice blurb about what American Warrior Radio is all about. But that Facebook page will lead you to all kinds of good information, and you don't have to be a Facebook member. If you say, ooh, Facebook, I don't want to get involved, especially with everything in the news nowadays.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a member. Click on it. You may not be able to interact, but you can certainly read and get the scoop on what's going on. And of course, go to AVET Project's Facebook page as well. But American Warrior Radio's Facebook page is updated on a regular basis, and you're going to find out more about Sergeant Burdette. And I do want to get a special thank you out to everybody that has contributed to help this family out, because his wife obviously is up there with him now, and fortunately, under the Yellow Ribbon program and the generosity of the general public, the mom and dad are able to be up there with him as he arrived from Germany. So at Walter Reed Hospital, we're really, we're praying for him and the family. And as our executive director Kim told the mom, at least he's alive.
Exactly. And once they've done all the medical things they can that are required while he's at Walter Reed, he could end up being in Tampa at that special segment of the hospital they have there for the severely wounded warriors, and that would put him closer to home and make it easier on the family that way. I see that as a potential thing, but the main thing is he's under great care. He's got a long road to hoe.
Yes, he does.
Our hearts and prayers go out for him and the family, and we thank you for your service to our country.
No kidding. That is making a real sacrifice, folks. I want to mention also, I had a little personal visit over to James Haley Hospital this last week, and I'm not going to go into that. However, I will tell you that at the Polytrauma TBI Clinic, which is run by an incredible individual, Dr. Stephen Scott, an amazing man. AVET Project took over a bunch of donated items. What did we have? Some BioFreeze, some boxes of that, and some other items that they can use. Neat little amplifiers for their cell phones and MP3 players and stuff. And it's just our way of letting them know they're not forgotten. They're over there going through the same type of trials and tribulations this young man's going to be going through.
Oh, absolutely. And Superman, I think, just hit the movie theaters like yesterday or today. Well, Dr. Scott should have been the one playing Superman. That guy is unbelievable, and
he has such passion.
Passion and initiative, and he comes up with new methodologies of treatment for our veterans that work and help them get better when they wouldn't have in the past. And let me say, if you're not familiar with the term polytrauma, that's multiple traumas to the same individual.
So they're a mess.
So, yeah, they're not dealing with just one thing. They're not dealing with just loss of one leg. It might also include TBI, that's traumatic brain injury. It may have had other impacts upon the body because of the concussive force of the explosion. But, man, this guy is unbelievable. I've listened to him speak about 4 times, and it just raises the hairs and makes me tingle all over what they're doing for our troops.
And they've just, under his leadership, they are completing a new wing to the James Haley Hospital over there. And for you folks that are unfamiliar with it, it's a big campus, but it's hodgepodge. I mean, there's buildings all over the place. I found this out in close detail this last week. But and hopefully, when the Orlando facility gets open, we'll be able to get some really good care on a much more local level.
Yes, and once it gets fully staffed up, and just remember they're going to open that Orlando hospital. They're not going to have a grand opening and they go out and cut the ribbon and every part of the hospital is open that day and they're ready to put people in beds and everything else. They're going to start with a step-by-step process, and the first part of that process, I think I heard them say, was some emergency room type treatment, and then go from there. They're going to have a nursing home and a domiciliary on the campus there, and it's going to be a state of the art. It's going to be, the VA's trying to make that their top hospital in the whole system, and yay, we want it to be the top hospital in the whole system too.
For sure.
But don't expect when they open, the contractor says April, the VA says later this year, whenever that is that they actually cut the ribbon. That doesn't mean it's open for full business and full service. They do have a lot of expanded service in the Orlando clinic. In fact, they're calling themselves a hospital now, except they don't have a hospital.
Right,
So,
right. But, and bless their hearts for the folks that are in the VA system doing good work. I will share a little bit of my personal experience of what I dealt with over at James Haley. I've got good doctors over there and good nurses, but I had a couple bad ones too. But I want to talk about a really fine individual. He's a massive young man, big, tall, strapping guy. He was with the 101st Airborne.
oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was my nurse in the nighttime hours.
Well, that's not somebody you picture as a nurse.
Well, he was 101st Airborne. The guy built like a tree. Just the nicest man, and I'm here to tell you, he got out of the service. He used his GI Bill to finish his nursing degree. He's a registered nurse, and this guy was Johnny on the spot. I mean, he could not be more professional. I mean, I was just astounded. I was so happy to be being cared for, because also there was such a stark contrast between his care of me as a patient and the care I received from the daytime nurse, which I'm not going to get into. But I will tell you, Casey, you're an awesome man. We celebrate your service and your continuing service to our vets by what you're doing as a registered nurse over there at James Haley.
Well, hoorah for you, Casey. And I gave a speech at Courtney Springs Village, which is independent living, assisted living facility, hospice, and nursing home, all combined on one campus over in Merritt Island yesterday. And at the end, unbidden, a World War II veteran got up and made statements about how great the VA is and how well they've taken care of him. Unbelievably, since World War II to today, and back in World War II and through the Vietnam era, the VA wasn't what it is today in terms of providing good medical care.
Right. Come a long way, thank God.
Exactly. And then another lady got up, and her husband, who has passed away, but he had been treated in the VA hospital in Tennessee, and in fact that he passed away in that facility, but she just was overwhelmed with what the VA had done for her husband over the years. And both of those were unbidden. I was asking for questions, and they got up and made these statements of support for the VA and how well they were pleased with the health care that they got from the VA. And so hats off to that. I get a lot of great comments about our clinic here. I get some people who complain too, but there are people who complain about everything.
Of course, there's good and bad everywhere, but we definitely want to celebrate the good.
The good.
And there are plenty of them. And we have brought you guest interviews with folks from the local VA, and we're going to get you an assistant director from your regional office here in Florida. His name is Scott Posty. He's a 6-year Marine. He's worked his way up in the system, and now he's an assistant director. He's going to be coming on American Warrior Radio, so be listening for when that episode airs, and because you're going to want to listen to it and share it with others. Father's Day is coming up, folks. You know that. Now, here's an interesting thing. You mentioned Vietnam a moment ago. We talked about H.R. 1756. This is going to allow free shipping for goods like AVET Project's EEB. That's our care package, Empowerment Equipment Box. If you want to find out more about it, go to avetproject.org or pick up the latest edition of Veteran Voice, that newspaper we mentioned, and you'll see what we include. It's a little different than most standard care packages. We add a couple extra things. Now, I said all that because if you want to do something special for your son or your husband, or if you're a child, your dad that's serving over in Afghanistan or someplace else around the globe.
Or your mother.
Yeah, exactly. But being Father's Day, you want to send an EB, why don't you jump online to avetproject.org for $14.85. That'll pay the shipping. We've got EBs. We've got these care packages ready to go. We've got to put the shipping costs together. So right now, whether you want to hit the donate button and make a $14.85 donation, that will ensure that one care package gets over to the troops that so desperately need them and deserve them. And again, you got to get behind H.R. 1756. Tell Senator Rubio and Senator Nelson, if you're listening somewhere else across the nation, you make sure that you call your senator. There's only 100 of them. Okay, 2 per state.
That's right.
So you make 2 phone calls and you tell them, if they even get 10 or 20 calls from their constituents, believe me, they're going to take notice.
Oh yeah, and they, if nothing else, they make tick marks every time they get a call on a particular subject. So don't believe that you're calling in vain, because you're really not. I know how the process works. I've talked to their aides before at length, and they do pay attention. You may not think it is because they're not going to sit there and talk to you on the phone for 30 minutes about the issue you called about, but they're making another tick mark, and an important tick mark for House Resolution 1756. So let's get our senators behind this thing. Let's get that through quickly, unblocked by the Senate as it is by the House, and get this thing going. It's obviously needed and has been needed for only 50 years.
Yeah, exactly. So get behind that. Glenn, you got a couple of announcements. I know there's something really important coming up that you wanted to stress to the audience.
Absolutely. I want to remind you that there's a new national cemetery being built up in the Mem-Scottsmore area by the VA. They haven't broken ground yet, but they're in the architectural phase right now. Well, the head of the cemetery system for the VA for building cemeteries, that part of the VA, is coming to our county, and he's going to present a presentation at the Veterans Memorial Center, which is right behind Merritt Square Mall, the place where you have 2 Cobra gunships firing at you as you come in. Well, they're not
can't
really
miss
firing, but you can't miss it.
Exactly.
Okay, so mark this down, 25 June. That's a Tuesday. 25 June, that's like the Tuesday after next week. 25 June at 1300. For you non-military people, that's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So 1 o'clock in the afternoon on 25 June at the Veterans Memorial Center. There will be some light refreshments, coffee and free water, and they're going to present all the information you ever wanted to know and more about the cemetery, our new national cemetery coming to Brevard County. And you'll also have a chance to offer any suggestions you might have for a name. They haven't picked a name yet. And they will also be able to answer your questions, and we'll tell you up front.
Who's allowed to attend?
Anybody that wants to go to this.
Outstanding.
Anybody. So we're going to be set for 150 people. I'm hoping we have 180 people show up, and we'll figure out where to put the other 30.
Exactly.
But it's a golden opportunity to get all your, I get questions all the time about the new cemetery. When's it going to open? Well, he's going to talk to that. How big's it going to be? He's going to talk to that. What's it going to look like? He's going to talk to that. It's going to be a great meeting that every veteran who's interested in information or spouses, surviving spouses or just spouses, should attend to get the information so that you've got the right information, because there's an area where there's a whole bunch of misinformation floating around, not just about the cemetery, but about burial benefits.
And while you're there at the VMC, the Veterans Memorial Center, they got a phenomenal library you can check books out of, an incredible museum, the Alex Terrera, which we'll have on the show sometime. Great things. Folks, we've run out of time again. It goes by so quickly. Thank you so much for joining us on American Warrior Radio. And as always, Glenn,
don't forget, thank a vet. Hey, we'll see you next week.